In the beginning, there was...
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephus and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Welcome once again to the Bitchspot Report podcast, a conservative atheist podcast that laughs in the face of political and religious stupidity because, well, somebody has to.
Yeah.
Join us.
It's funny too.
Yeah. Join us on this roller coaster of theistic stupidity and liberal absurdity as we explore the ins and outs of our modern world through the eyes of people with common sense. God, I wish more people had that.
I really wish that was I wish that was a true statement. Some of the stuff I've been seeing, fuck free thought blogs. That's all I gotta say. Fuck them.
Well, see, I don't read anything on there. I mean, once in a while I'll stop in and see what's going on over on the Atheist Experience, but more and more I'm not even looking at that. I pay no attention to them.
It was totally unrelated, and I didn't even, when I saw the link and it shot me right to a free thought blog, writer. Oh, it's not even the normal stuff. It's the Brian Dunning issue where, apparently he's been convicted. I think he's waiting sentencing. And of course it's pile-on time because, these fuckheads, this article I read, and I'm not going to tell you the link or, but this guy just, for a skeptical atheist, type of people, I mean, that's what this free thought blog is supposed to be. This was the most unskeptical, I mean, I'll admit, if I make a mistake, I have no issue with that. But you know what? I mean, this article just, it's almost like, the guy's down, let's kick him one more time. That type of shit. It really irks me when I see this stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I completely ignore those idiots. I'm just sick and tired of the crap, and that seems to be all that they do. Yeah. It's like they'll kick everybody else when they're down, but if anybody comes by and does it to one of their group, they scream bloody murder.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are not rational, you guys are not even-handed, you're just idiots. So, yeah, I mean, fuck them. I'm tired of it.
But it's always like, like some of the people I follow, and there's like, on the Skept Talk, Google group that one of them I'm involved with, and there was a guy who up and quit, and didn't really say anything, and I was kind of curious why would he quit, because he posted to everybody. It's like, why post something, if I'm quitting a group, I'm like, I'm quitting it. I'm not going to tell everybody, sayonara, I'm out of here, no, I'm just going to quit. But this guy posted something, so I'm like curious, but nothing was there. So it's like I left it alone, and somewhere someone found a link to something that he might have, I think he alluded to, and clicked on the link, and it shot me right to a free thought blog, and, I'm like, oh shit, and then, of course I had to read it because that's the way I am. And started reading this thing. It's like, what? It seems to be like this, at least over there seems to be this, it's a P.Z. Meyer mindset that, I mean, I've heard him say, he goes after like, even though there's scientists who do good science, and they've done, and they do real science. I mean, they managed to separate their religion, but because they have a religious belief, we have to discard their work or demean their work. It's like, no. I mean, if the guy's doing real science and he's doing it properly and he's getting published and he's getting reviewed and people are accepting it and everything works, there's no problem. The problem is when you get the Ken Ham scientists who are telling you that the world's 3,000 years old and everything we know is wrong. Well, that, I'd like to see their published work, and how far that.
They have none.
And they have none. That's exactly it. So, but there seems to be this, like with Brian, he got in trouble with cookie stuffing. It was a $5 million, technically he defrauded eBay for $5 million. From what I've read about what happened, I don't know if it sounds more like maybe it was more of an ethic at the time, because there was no rules. When I first read about this, there was really no rules for eBay, how you work your affiliate links. And, the rules were pretty vague and so on. But when eBay realized that guys had figured out how to stuff cookies, because there was a guy who was already been convicted on, it was like $30-some million they got from, eBay. They had figured out how to, kind of rig the cookies. So if you go to, if you go to a website and you see a eBay link or ad, banner ad, but if you didn't click on that eBay link, the website puts a cookie that tells you that you were on eBay, or you did click the eBay thing, but if you go to another site, but then eventually end up at eBay, that site would get the finder's fee that they paid. So to me, it sounded more like an ethical issue. Do you do that? And some people decided, however they made their decision, but apparently Brian set, or I think it sounded more like his brother may have been more the driving force than Brian, but but Brian was involved and, ended up, getting busted for it because eBay then realized that these affiliates were raking in money, even though they weren't sending people to eBay, directly. It was all through this kind of a backdoor deal. So, I guess someone made the determination that this was a violation of law and all that kind of stuff. So Brian went to court, whatever. I think he was found guilty. Now he has to be sentenced. I think that's in April. So we'll find out more then. But all of a sudden it's like, okay, anything Brian has done is invalid. He's got over 400 podcasts, and they're great podcasts. I'm a big fan of it, his work. Okay, so he made a mistake in the past, and now he's gonna have to pay for it. Let him pay for it in peace, and but it's almost like this guy attacking him. Other people on Free Thought blogs have gone after Dunning, and even this article even made a jab at James Randi, kind of offhandedly, and I'm like, what the fuck are these people doing? It just floors me that they're insensitive. They're this pompous attitude that somehow they're, I don't know, because they got a Free Thought blog, site that gives them some type of, I never heard of this guy until now. So it's like, these guys must be trying to, I wouldn't be surprised they're putting out this bullshit just to draw people like me in to get a hit on a ad thing.
Well, that's all they ever do.
Yeah, because it's really this article is just totally ignorant.
Well, you got to remember that the fuckers at Free Thought blogs and all the people on the Atheism Plus side, anybody that does not agree with them on their social issues becomes the enemy, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference who you are. All right, if you do not sign up for their Kool-Aid, you are the enemy. Everybody, every scientist out there who does not agree with them on their social issues is the enemy. Every human being that does not agree with them on the social issues is the enemy. That's their whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap what he said, what he did, anything else. As long as he is not on their side, he is on the other side, and they're going to attack him for everything they can attack him for. Yeah. How would P.C. Myers feel if most rational atheists decided that we're just going to ignore all scientists who are assholes? Yeah. He'd be out of a job.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and it's just one of those, it was just an insult. It was just, there was nothing rational about this article. There was nothing, it was just bashing the guy when he's down. And I find that really reprehensible. It's lower than low. And I've seen how low they get over there, but this is about as low as it gets.
Oh, I have no problem with bashing somebody for something they actually did wrong.
Right.
But to sit around and say, well, just because you did one thing wrong, then everything you've ever done in your entire life has been invalidated because we don't like what you did. That's kind of fucking stupid. But then again, look at who we're talking about.
Right.
All right. Well, we had a really, really, really long show last week. So I think we're going to try and do a little bit shorter this week, hopefully, maybe. We don't know. It might be. I don't know.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, we have no idea. We don't plan this. We just do stories, and then shit happens, and it's as long as it is. So let's go ahead and do some news.
Let's do the news.
And now the news.
In China tonight, a horrific scene there. Men armed with knives entering a train station and taking aim. Afterward, just look at this image. A policeman there searching the chaos in discarded suitcases at a station in Kunming, China. ABC's Gloria Riviera reporting in from Beijing for us right now.
According to China's state-run Xinhua News, a gang of men wielding knives, dressed in black, stormed the train station in Kunming, the capital of China's famously beautiful Yunnan province. Authorities are calling it a premeditated terrorist attack. Survivors describing scenes of bloodshed and bewilderment. I saw a person come straight at me with a long knife, and I ran away with everyone, victim Yang Hefei told Xinhua. In China, gun laws are among the toughest in the world. In recent years, the country has seen a spate of mass stabbings. A December 2012 spree targeting school children. 7 children died in one attack targeting students in 2010. The government has blamed some of the past attacks on the mentally unstable, individuals protesting the leadership. The motive for this coordinated attack is still unknown.
China's official news agency reports that 27 people were killed and 109 injured when a group of men armed with knives attacked a train station in southwest China. Now, that's a tragedy on its own, but I don't report it for that reason. People in this country, especially liberals, argue that we ought to ban guns because they can be used to kill people, particularly in school shootings. But here is an example of people using knives to cause far more harm than any school shooting we've yet seen. Is it the weapons that are dangerous or the people? I vote for the people.
That's always been my vote. The wrong people, they get their hands on a gun, they get hands on a knife, they can get their hands on a car, they can get their hands on whatever. And, they could do some pretty serious damage. And, this whole idea about we gotta ban guns, we gotta ban knives, we gotta ban, where do you stop? I mean, you can't keep a baseball bat in the backseat of your car. You have to have a baseball and a glove with it, so you're going to a baseball game. Not that you're going to use the bat for self-defense, but, granted, play baseball, but, there's all that, this mentality that it's the item, the gun, the knife, the car, the baseball bat, the whatever is the problem. No, the problem is you got people who get their hands on these things and do bad things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, that if crazy people don't have access to guns, they'll use knives, baseball bats, gerbils, whatever they come up with.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you take the weapons away. The problems are going to go on until we solve the problem of the crazy people. And they don't want to talk about that. That's the funny thing is the liberals just don't want to talk about solving the actual problem. We know what the problem is. They don't want to do it. It's ridiculous.
Well, if I'm understanding this right, there are legally, if you are a mental case, or I don't know I don't know if it varies from state to state, if there's anything federal, but if you have mental issues, you're not allowed to have a gun. And the problem is,
which doesn't stop any of these people because most of the time it's not their gun.
Well, the problem is, another problem is that you'll never know that these people are crazy because of the privacy. They can walk in and fill out the paperwork. They say, no, I'm not crazy. I've never been institutionalized, whatever. And no one would know. No one would be able to check because you legally cannot. Apparently in the whoever comes up with the rules, you cannot divulge that's personal information that can't be divulged.
Yep.
So, and you're talking about a crazy person. They may not have any connection with what's lawful, what's right and wrong. So they oh yeah, I'm perfectly sane. No problem. And go up, get that gun, and do what they want to do. You'll never know. I mean, if like with Adam Lanza, they've been wanting to get him into institutionalized, and they couldn't do it. It takes forever for that to happen. No one wants to pay for it. No one wants to do anything about it. So while they're sitting there trying to decide what to do with this kid, he grabs his mother's guns and goes to Sandy Hook School and shoots it up. It's like we're dealing with crazy people. I mean, definitely we're dealing with crazy people or people that are mentally damaged. That may be kind of harsh, but because like the Columbine, these were kids that are being bullied and being made fun of. so they take it upon themselves to bring guns and shoot up, the Columbine. I mean, I bet you any amount of money that the teachers at Columbine knew that these kids were either being bullied or bullying or whatever the deal is. And, they could have suspected something right up bat. But then when then again, you're stuck. How do you report it? Do you report it? If you did report it, does it get the information get to the right people? It's that seems to be the biggest problem. It's not the guns. It's the people in this, that you're trying to work within a system that doesn't, it's all disconnected. You can't do anything. It's like you're stuck. And then when a tragedy like Columbine, Sandy Hook, the guy at, the Navy Yard, the Fort Hood shooting, all these different, these are all people these are people with mental issues, varying types and varying, whatever, but these were people who had, mental problems, and you put the person gun together and give them an opportunity, and this is what you get. But then again, you're innocent until proven guilty. And, there's all these problems that we have. To me, it seems like we're allowing guns to get into these people's hands that are going to do harm. It's not the guns problem. It's the person problem.
Well, no, it's the fact that we put all these people on drugs that have, that cause psychotic breaks. Most of these people, if they weren't on the antipsychotic drugs that they were on, if they weren't on all these drugs to keep them in line and keep them quiet, which is really all anybody gives a shit about anymore, then they probably would never have had the psychotic break that caused any of these problems to begin with. But nobody wants to deal with that fact because these drugs are big business and big industry and quote-unquote big pharma, if you want to go that way. And these drugs make it easy to keep these people acting like sheep. So the schools want all the kids on these drugs to keep them quiet so that they can, they don't have to deal with problem students. Parents want the kids on drugs so they don't have to deal with the problem kids. And that's the problem. Virtually every single one of these school shootings has been on these drugs. The antidepressants, the antipsychotics, the stuff for ADHD and all the rest of that. That's been the single line through every damn one of these shootings. Not one person wants to do anything about those because everybody wants the money that the pharmaceutical companies are paying out to keep these kids going. And it doesn't matter if it's the guns. It doesn't matter if it's knives. It doesn't matter what you're using. I'd actually argue that knives and similar weapons are even worse potentially because there's no ammunition. Once you run out of bullets, a gun is useless. You might throw it at somebody, but that's a one-kind thing. A knife lasts for a really long time until it gets too dull to hurt people. A baseball bat lasts for a really long time before it breaks. So, if you're really worried about, the weapon is going to be potentially dangerous, well, then you need to ban all knives, all baseball bats, cars. Well, I guess a car isn't too useful once it runs out of gas, but you can run over a lot of people with a full tank.
Yeah. I don't know if I really want to pin it totally on the drugs, but we got kids that are, I know definitely Lonza had a lot of issues. I don't know what Columbine's issues were. Certainly we do like to have our kids quiet and, teachers don't want to deal with the problem kid. It doesn't really matter if the kid actually has something, if he's really does have some sort of mental issue, or the kid's just, like with me, I was always bored in school. I'd be sitting in a classroom and we're going over the same shit over and over again. I don't know. Maybe I'll throw something at somebody. There's nothing wrong with me. But, kids get bored, but teachers, they want that perfect, everyone listening to them, so but there's definitely, we've got a mental health issue in this country, and it's almost like, I will agree that in most cases, we just want the kid calmed down. We want him quiet. We want him to sit in his chair for at least an hour or two, whatever the parameters are that for this kid, a kid in class. So.
Well, the problem is that these drugs don't solve the problem. They just cover up the symptoms.
Right. Oh, exactly.
Nobody's actually solving the problems. And for a lot of these kids, I'm willing to bet you that a lot of these people really they need to be put into an institution. But we don't do that in this country anymore because apparently it's somehow cruel to put these people away No, it's not cruel to put these people away. These people have goddamn problems.
Yeah.
Their brain is wired wrong, and whether it's their fault or not, society deserves to be protected from these people.
Right.
We don't think about that.
Well, even then again, we've given up the mental institution. I mean, they're closed. They've been closing those things down left and right, and it's a lot better to put them in jail. And that's what seems to be the standard operating procedure. Lock them in jail. We can't get them into a state institution, private, whatever it is. Once they commit a crime, convict them, put them in jail, and that's how they get their treatment. It's like,
yeah, but they don't get any treatment that way.
Exactly.
They just get to sit in a cell.
oh yeah, and yeah, that's it. The problem goes away.
No, until they let them out, they're still just as crazy as they were when they went in.
Right, and then they'll end up right back in there. That seems to be the standard operating. The jails are de facto mental institutions now. That's what it is. And I've heard people say that. That's all it is. They're off their pills or whatever they do, and that's where they end up. Whatever their psychosis is or whatever it manifests doesn't necessarily have to be of anything really violent. They could be just running through the streets naked. That's enough to put you in jail for a few days, and that's how we treat them. We don't we don't get them to a doctor, get them to an institution, try to see if it's, what the deal is here, or try to really figure out how to rewire that brain, whatever it takes. We don't want to do it.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is if you look at and I hate to keep saying liberal, but it is, guys, it is. But if you look at the liberal psychologists and their, all of the groups on that side, they don't want anybody in a fucking institution. They don't want anybody to even be told there's something wrong with them. They've got this really bizarre feeling that everybody is perfect and wonderful the way they are, no matter how goddamn crazy they are, no matter how antisocial, psychotic, homicidal, whatever, that everybody is just the way that they should be, and we shouldn't criticize anybody for being however they are. Well, guys, fuck you. I hope you people get one of these crazy people out there to shoot up your family. Then you'll change your goddamn mind, because there's something wrong with these people, and these people, if you can't rewire them, I'm fine with you executing them. I'm sorry. Society's more important than one individual every time.
Right.
Oh yeah, I get complaints because, I'm not being kind and all that, but I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm worried about the health of society than I am, the health of one person. If you're stupid, you go out and shoot up a bunch of people. I don't care how crazy you are. And this is one thing I've told people, when they will go out and they'll say, well, this person is not mentally competent to stand trial for what he did. Well, fuck, if this guy is so out of his goddamn mind that he can't even understand that what he did was wrong, then we don't need this individual living in this society. Put a bullet in his brain and fucking move on.
Yeah.
Spend your time treating the people who can be treated. Do not spend your time treating people who are so far gone and so completely out of their gourds that they just can't get it. These are not people we should be spending our time and money on.
Yeah. I'm kind of the feeling that because we basically ignore these people even when they start seeing the problems. I mean, like I said with Adam Lanza, they did know this kid had problems, and I mean, they really didn't do anything for him or to him, or they just kept sending him back home. Okay, he's gonna be fine. Here's whatever the instructions are send the kid home with some instructions, and if he acts out again, let's just bring him back in. It's that, like I said, I think in the United States in general, we don't treat mental illness as we should. And I mean, what it ends up, the only way we treat mental illness is let him commit a crime, murder, whatever it is, murder, assault, whatever it is, and then we lock them up. That's how we treat the mentally ill here. We let them live on the streets. I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are now, but most of the homeless have mental issues, and they just can't get, they can't get their whatever medication or whatever that they're supposed to have, or whatever treatment they're supposed to be getting. They can't get it, so they can't function. They end up out on the street, living out of garbage cans. It's like, if we did something, and of course then they start talking money and then everyone freaks out. So it's like, it's better to let them live out on the street. Hopefully they freeze to death over the winter and we find them in the spring, type of thing, and just, chunk them in whatever. That's the way we treat a mentally ill. And that's how the United States treats them. I mean, again, I think there's been people who says, oh, kind of using the same argument, you're being zapped up with the Prozacs and the Ritalin and all that kind of stuff. Get off those pills, take, whatever, something root, and you'll be fine. You don't need these, heavy psychotic, antipsychotics. So they go on the roots and then they go and kill people. It's like self-medicating. It's not working. It's really not working. You just can't pat them on the head, give them a couple pills, pat them on the head, send them out on their way. Something's going to happen. They go off the pills, whatever changes. I mean, it sounds to me like even dealing with this stuff, the pills lose potency or they lose whatever I don't know the inner workings of how these antipsychotics, but sometimes they just stop working and, they go back into their deal. And the person who's supposed to be on these pills don't recognize it. They just think life is the same, just because delusions, starts coming back. But I think it's just in general how we treat our mentally ill. I can agree with, maybe we are over medicating. I mean, we're certainly doing that to the kids, because I have issues with, ADHD and all that kind of stuff that, it's usually the teachers that are making that diagnosis. I mean, I know that's the way they did it in Illinois. Teachers who have like education degrees are making psychological decisions. So if a kid acts out and, one day out of the year the kid acts out, or one day the kid doesn't draw within the lines, put them on pills. That's their attitude. Illinois has, and they probably still do it with their special education. In Illinois, each kid who gets put into special education is worth an extra $1,000 a year to provide that education. Well, it's a federal law. Illinois, the way they implemented was that for every kid in special education, the state will pay $1,000 a year to provide the classroom, the teacher, the materials to help that kid through in special education. But way the school districts looked at it was how many kids I can get into special education. How can I find them? How can I get them in there and make that extra $1,000 a year? That's all they were interested in. So when you're in kindergarten, you're working your coloring book and you color outside the lines, that's all it takes to get you into special education in Illinois. They tried to hook me into the system. It's a long story. I don't, like I said, we're trying to keep it under 2 hours, right?
Yes, that'd be nice.
Yeah. And that's the teacher. And the teacher will write it into your permanent record. And, next thing you know, once that goes in there, you're fucked in this country. Yep. It turned out I needed glasses. I'm dyslexic slightly. My brother's is dyslexic. And because of that, and see, I was able to stay out because when they gave me the second round of tests, my IQ was in the 180 range. My vocabulary, when they did a vocabulary test, I was in graduate college. And this was back in 5th, 6th grade. They give me a word. What does this word mean? I tell them, and the test giver says, I'm getting into words I don't even understand. So there's nothing wrong with your vocabulary. I was such an exception. That was the weird thing. So I'm now stuck on a podcast.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've run that one into the ground. Yeah. All right. Go for it.
Okay. And I found this on HuffPost. Religion. David Yonggi Cho, founder of the world's largest megachurch, convicted of embezzling $12 million. Okay. Good start.
I trust we're not surprised by any of this, are we?
I hope not. I mean, I think, just about everybody is, they've put their hands in that till. And I think the interesting part about this story was he's not even, fazed by this. It's like, this is normal. I'm supposed to take $12 million, I think there's even more money that's in question. But, I guess they can only pin the 12 million on him. So it's like, I mean, this guy's been raping that church. Not nearly a whimper out of the parishioners and anything like that. I mean, it's just why,
Yeah, but they're all supporting him.
Yeah.
They're all saying this is a good thing. We see this in the U.S. all the time. This story happened in Korea, but this one we see all the time in the U.S. where megachurch pastors and televangelists, they live these ridiculously extravagant lifestyles with lavish houses, cars, private jets, and nobody says a goddamn word. And then they keep popping up going, well, God's going to take me home unless you give me another $20 million. Come on, cough it up.
I still love the Jim and Tammy Baker. Oh, I love it. Says, well, God wants me to have all this stuff, so please send your money in, It's like not even, to hide the idea that, hey, God wants me to have the nice jet and the $1 million house and the water park and all that kind of stuff. It's like, please support us. I think Tammy was saying that, she puts on so much makeup and, wears the different clothes every day. And, it's because that's what God wants me to do. Like, you got these poor old ladies who, they're watching this on TV, stuffing the last few bucks in that they have from their Social Security checks into an envelope and sending it to these people who sit there and, just, party. And Jim Baker and his Jessica Hahn. I mean, I know that's going back, way, but and they play their games. They take the money. They spend the money on crazy stuff. They build art parks and creationist museums, and it helps nobody but themselves. And that's, and that's what's so ignorant about this.
Yeah, well, I did want to point out that exactly what I predicted did come true. And good old Ken Ham, his art park is in the black now because of that debate.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
So that was stupid. But I mean, the whole thing is, churches don't have to disclose how they spend their money, and I think that's something we really, really have to change in this country. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to be tax exempt, you ought to publish your financial records so absolutely everybody can see how you're actually spending your money, and make sure that you're actually spending it in a non-profit manner. But we don't require that in this country. Nobody gets to know how any of these churches, big or small, spends any of their money. Yeah. They could be spending it all on hookers and blow, and nobody would ever know.
Yeah.
That's an issue, guys.
And I wouldn't even stop at, what you said. I mean, even any political expenditures,
But a lot of those churches have no requirements of any kind.
But they have nothing at all.
Nothing.
They can get away with all this. They can.
Yep.
They could take half the money they make. They could send it to support whatever candidates. You'll never know. And you know what? I think I seen one of these, I don't know, memes or whatever they put up there. That 73 million for Ken Ham for his park.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly what the thing is.
I mean, think about how many people that could fit. People who really need help. How far $75 million would go. But no.
Even worse, if you're talking about just nonprofits, if you actually taxed the churches, every church in this country, you would have the number something between 70 and $75 billion a year.
Yeah.
We're fucking funding these fuckers and we don't even know what they're doing with their own money. What the hell is wrong with this country?
Either that or we're in the wrong business. I mean, man, I would love to be able to hide $75 million. I mean, I would love,
I'm sorry.
I would love to have $75 million to hide in a church, but
I'm sorry, I'm too honest for that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's, when you have integrity and honesty and all that kind of stuff, all those nice Christian values, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, we have more than they do.
Apparently.
It's really sad. But this guy, I don't know if he's going to jail or not for whatever he did. I have no idea. But, in this country, would any of our televangelists go to jail if they were convicted of stealing all this money? Of course not. No. Because the second anybody even suggested they went to jail, same thing we see in the Catholic Church, all the parishioners come running out going, you can't do that! They're men of God! They answer to a different standard. Well, no, they don't. They're a bunch of fucking criminals, and, we should take them all out and shoot them.
Did Baker do any time?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I mean, all I know is that, Jerry Falwell took over. I don't know if it was a hostile takeover or whatever, but just took over his whole operation. But,
and he's just as big a crook as the other guy.
Yeah. Probably got it 10 cents on the dollar from him.
Yeah.
No honor amongst thieves.
Yeah. Or, we're selling our prayer handkerchiefs that, he not only, and this is the one thing I don't get, because medical scams, if you went out there and said, I'm going to give you this pill and it will solve your problem, the FDA would be out there going, doing all kinds of research and putting these guys in prison for medical fraud. You do it for religion, and he was out there going, buy my prayer handkerchief and it will solve your problems. Nobody says a goddamn word.
Peter Popoff. He's been caught, but I don't think
But he's still out there.
He's still out there. He goes from one scam to another. It's like that Kevin Trudeau.
I think he's in prison.
I think he's in prison now. I know that, I don't know what the deal was. He was supposed to come up with, whatever. But anyhow, it's the same thing that he did. It's like this scam isn't working because the government find out, so I moved to the next scam. It kept moving to the next scam, next scam. And people kept buying into it, and it's.
Yeah, but the problem is he had to keep changing scams.
Yeah.
The religious never change scams. They keep doing the same damn thing. The government never comes by and says, hey, you can't do the religious scam anymore.
Yeah.
That's Peter Popoff. No matter how many times he gets caught being a shyster, he comes back and he's still the religious shyster.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
This ridiculous, religion gets a special treatment. No, religious should not get this special pass in society. If you go out and you rip off a bunch of widows and orphans and little old ladies and their social security checks, you ought to go to fucking prison. You shouldn't just go, well, I'll just change religions and do it again.
Yeah.
The government ought to say, guess what? You are no longer, a religious representative, and if we find you out there preaching to anybody, you go to fucking prison. But they don't do that. I don't get that. How religion has this absurd get out of jail free card associated with it. What the fuck is wrong with us?
That is a good question.
It's only religion that we do this with.
Definitely, yeah. I don't know if I can add anything more to it. It's just when the Catholics and their thing that, well, it's kind of okay. It's not the church's fault. I got a news article on that one. So I won't go into too much detail, but all of them, it's, they've all been caught, even though some of the weird stuff, they keep getting caught, and it's just move on to the next. And, and the religious, they still hang on to they could still hang on to those trappings. It's just maybe a different scam. And why do we keep falling for it? Because, it's a mystery to me why we hold these people to these such high standards. And to me,
we don't hold them to any standards.
Well, we don't, but
there's no standards at all.
But that's the only way I can think of is why a person who will hand over the money. Why do they keep handing them over? Because they think these are men of God. They're supposed to be, whatever. And we know for what they are. They're a bunch of shysters.
Well, yeah, look at somebody like Tony Alamo, who's in fucking prison for fucking little girls, okay? And he still has an active worldwide ministry going on in his name by people who are convinced that he's a wonderful person. What's wrong with all these people? Seriously, if your pastor goes out and molests kids, you should not be supporting this person anymore. And if this entire ministry is done in his name and is taught that molesting kids is a good thing, which Tony Alamos does, why are you part of it? What the fuck is wrong with every goddamn person who believes in that crap? I don't get it. What? Maybe these people all need to be drugged up because there's something psychologically wrong with them.
That was going through my head because I remember this. What was it? There was what was that guy? I don't remember the guy. Was he the Sweat Lodge guy?
No, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Because I want to say there was I think I saw something on it's like a 2020 or whatever those shows where they were talking about this incident in the Sweat Lodge, and they were sitting in there, and people started dropping dead inside this thing, and of course they because they were being held in there. They were supposed to stay in there for so many hours or whatever, and but people were, I don't know what it was, if they were already dehydrated and they put them inside this thing, and but a couple people died, and eventually they forced their way out of this thing. And then at the end, it was like, with all this happening, do you still believe this stuff? And this girl goes, oh yeah, I would do it again. I'm like, it just floored me that you would, after what this guy did, I mean, I don't know if it was 1 or 3 people who died from this, and you'll do it again. Lady, you definitely have issues. You need to get some kind of, deprogramming or something like that. I don't know what it is, but why would you do that? After what you saw, what you experienced, and what happened to other people, why would you do it again? And that's what floors me. That just floors me,
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some people who are just stupid, and I get the one that you were talking about with the Sweat Lodge deaths. That was James Arthur Ray, who's a New Age guy,
okay,
and it wasn't Tony Alamo, who preaches that he can and did marry girls as young as age 6, and yeah, that's why he's gone.
Right. Okay.
Different guy, different crazy guy. They're all crazy guys. But yeah, they've got their followers, and nothing you can say is ever going to change their minds, and they're going to go out there and keep following this fucker no matter how long he spends time in prison. Yeah. I mean, same reason people are out there still following, Manson and all the other crazies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People are fucked up. Well, I think we talked about fucked up people enough, though.
And we got plenty more people. We've got another year worth of shows here. The same shit, different. We got a story.
Yep,
we could probably make up stories and no one will notice because it's the same fucked up shit.
Yeah, but we don't. I mean, this stuff is real. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do another one then.
Okay.
Hey, we need a feel-good story every now and then, don't we? A new survey has found that there's been a dramatic increase in tolerance toward gay issues since Massachusetts first legalized gay marriage a decade ago. This increase has taken part across every religion, political affiliation, age group, and region of the country. Acceptance of gay marriage has leapt from 32% in 2003 to 53% today. During the same period, gay marriage has become legal in 17 states and the District of Columbia, and the Supreme Court struck down DOMA, and federal courts are declaring state laws against gay marriage unconstitutional. Well, it's about fucking time. Thank you all for standing up for equality across the board. Now if only the religious would get it through their fucking heads. And luckily they're starting to, but
Well, that's because there's less of them now.
That's true!
As you will see later in this article.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you're looking at evangelicals, which are like the hardest hardcore, gay marriage is becoming more acceptable. It's, it's dropped from 84% to 78%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but considering these are the most hardcore of the hardcore, to have 25% of them accept gay marriage, that's pretty amazing, I think.
Oh, definitely. Anytime you abandon your things that are ingrained like that, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty big thing to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought it was funny because I was looking at, there's like 3 religious groups out there that were the most unfriendly towards gays right now. The Catholics at 58%, Mormons at 53%, and evangelicals at 51%. And I'm going, what? The evangelicals are more accepting of gays than the Catholics? What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's bizarre to me. I would think they would be like, 80%. But no, most evangelicals are starting to come around and say, this is something we just can't fight anymore. And I'm just waiting for the federal courts to come around and strike down every state anti-gay law there is. They just took out Texas. Texas no longer has an anti-gay legislation in their constitution. They can't. This kind of shit just isn't valid under the Constitution. You can't do this shit. Right. You can't, like, a state could not say, well, guess what? States' rights. We're going to legalize slavery. Fuck no. No, you're not.
Yep.
You can't do that. You can't, there's lots of things you just can't do just because you want to do it. Just because you're a bunch of religious retards.
Yeah. Cause I think in Michigan, and I haven't checked the news lately, but I guess there's a case in the works. I think it sounds like, Michigan's, opposition to same-sex marriage was struck down, but there's another issue that is now going into the court. It has to do with adoption. So I'm hoping there's some good news come out of Michigan. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, the writing's on the wall. I'm glad that, even the worst of the worst is recognizing it. So it's the Catholics. Oh man. Maybe that's why they accept what they accept, cause.
Well, they apparently accept priests buggering kids.
Yeah. I don't know. Unless that's some kind of I mean, I don't know. I'm probably stereotyping here. I don't want to do that, but I wonder if it's I suspect that I don't have numbers. I wonder if it's because it's more Hispanic and there's that macho thing that goes on with them. I wonder if that's what's really going on, that Caucasian Catholics are going away. It's now more Hispanic, base. So maybe there's something there, but, again, I probably just, made a stereotype that I shouldn't have, but that may be what's going on, and they're, at least, that's why they're opposed to gays, but then, of course, the priests and so on. I mean, cause I still like to think that, that there's this belief that the priests and those leaders are, because they are leaders and that they hold some sort of moral high ground and, some sort, that these people are infallible. These are people who you could be trusted. And, of course, the evidence points totally against it. But again, it's maybe that ingrained, you trust the policeman, you trust your, teacher, you trust your priest, that type of stuff. These are people who are pillars of the community and all that kind of stuff, so there's like this ingrained, once it becomes clear or somehow to convince these people, these are just humans and they're going to do the crazy shit they do. Cause it's always been the communities, these ingrained Catholic communities. Boston is a classic where, someone accuses a priest of pedophilia. The whole community comes together to ostracize the victims. They defend the priest who's being accused, who were guilty of that crime, but they'll defend those priests for some reason. I think it's some sort of, that indoctrination, the ingraining, whatever. I mean, apparently it didn't work with me because I have no, I don't hold these people in any kind of esteem or anything like that.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. I mean, even when you're talking about police, we know that there are corrupt cops out there. All right? You should never hold a class of person in esteem. You should look for each individual person and say, does this person deserve it or not?
Right.
Catholic priests? Yeah, there's probably a lot of really cool guys out there who are doing the job and out in the trenches. They're not doing anything wrong. They're not molesting kids and all that. But there's a shitload that are. Right. And you should never defend those people. Ever.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But, I mean, that's pretty much what we're about to talk about in your next story, so why don't we just do that?
Let's do that so we don't, again, we can keep this under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. This is from the Raw story. Church officials blame Minnesota mom for not protecting sons from priest who abused them. Oh, so that's the problem. The parents are not protecting them from the priests. That's, it's not the priest's fault that he wants to diddle little kids. It's the parents who won't protect their kids from them.
Yeah.
Apparently we've been wrong all this time.
Imagine that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's just blame the victim crap from the Catholic Church. What, are we surprised?
I'm not.
It's sad. It's sad.
I'm surprised we don't hear this more often. It's like it's usually they just keep it quiet. They don't say anything. Now here's one coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, it's not the priest's fault he likes to fuck kids. It's the parents or the teacher or whoever it is that didn't keep the kid away from the guy." It's like,
yeah.
Oh my, it's like.
Well, that's like saying it's not Adam Lanza's fault so many people got shot. It's their fault for not ducking.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And this is exactly what we keep talking about. The church knows what's going on. They are aware of the sexual abuse that's happening, yet they do nothing to stop it until it's either clear it's going to become a public problem or is about to become a public problem. These people just shuffle their priests around, but, as soon as it turns out that they might get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, well, no, we're sorry for all the victims and all this stuff. No, you're not. If you were sorry, you would have stopped it in the first place. The people in charge of this priest knew what the fuck he did long before there was ever a problem. They just ignored it.
Yeah. And again, it's that, I don't know. I mean, what is it with the church that they can't, I'm sure part of the reason is that the cost. I mean, it's probably cheaper to not say anything, pay the family off, then move the priest somewhere else so he becomes someone else's problem. Whatever. Everyone gets paid off. Everything goes away. But it's just, but as it keeps happening over and over again, the bucket runs dry. The people, those stories that do get out, it keeps going and going. And I mean, the Catholic priest, this is not a new story. This has been around for 20, I'm trying to think. I'm 50 years old. Maybe 25. I mean, I've heard of it 25 years ago. I mean, I remember maybe as a teenager seeing it on TV. Priest in Boston. I think it was Boston was the big story at the time. It's like, this is 20 years. Nothing has changed. And the church hasn't changed. The parishioners haven't changed. And when these kids get abused, they're the victim, or they've been victim, and they're turned into the problem. The problem isn't the church's problem. It's the parent. The parent didn't teach the kid right to avoid these things, or,
the parent didn't teach the kid not to get fucked by the priest.
Yeah.
Come on, because that's something every parent should be teaching.
Yeah. I guess I do not understand this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the latest figures I've seen, and I do tend to update this as I learn more, but as of the beginning of this year, the estimate is that sex abuse lawsuits have cost the Catholic Church $5.3 billion worldwide. And a lot of people think that as soon as Africa gets involved, because most of those things are not in Africa, and the problem is still rampant in Africa, but once Africa gets involved in suing priests, that number can easily triple. The Catholic sex abuse is an epidemic. Yet the church is using its political clout to try and keep these pedophiles and sex abusers employed. I don't get it. You'd think after $5.3 billion, they would have learned a lesson or something.
You would think, but...
I mean, that might be chump change in the Vatican. The chair that the Pope sits on probably costs more than $5.3 billion.
Right. What is it going to take? I mean, I think what it's going to take is that you start hauling these guys into prison, and maybe someone will take notice.
Well, not only the pedophiles, but you need to start hauling their bosses into prison, the people who know about it.
Yeah.
You need to start putting the archbishops into prison. And there's been very, very few cases where that's happened. I mean, there was one in Philadelphia, and there's a couple of them here and there, but most of the time, they get away scot-free. Even though it's shown that they knew for a fact the whole way through that this guy was out diddling kids, and he just let them keep on going.
Yeah.
You gotta hold the whole church responsible. And I really think that when these churches start going bankrupt to avoid paying out, I think we need to start confiscating churches. It's like, guys, guess what? That's a really nice church there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, but we're taking it. We're selling it. We're tearing it down. We're building something useful there, and you can go fuck yourself.
Or take it, auction it off. Seize the property, auction it off, create a fund for victims. Boom.
Yeah. That'd be fine. I'd like to see if an entire archdiocese, 50 different churches go bankrupt. Cool. All 50 churches go under, and there just is no Catholic presence in this area, which is entirely cool with me.
Yeah.
Because the less Catholic presence there is, the less we're likely to see this shit happen.
True.
Maybe if they all go bankrupt, we can just clear the whole damn church out of the country.
I wouldn't be heartbroken over that one. Any church that would go away, it would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, 'cause definitely. I mean, the stuff we keep pointing out, every show, every time, over and over again, it's some type of abuse. I mean, there's a story, I won't do it next week, because this is, I guess in Kenya, there's a pastor that's telling his parishioners not to wear underwear, no bras, no panties, so God can come in, or Jesus can come in. And I'm like,
so to speak.
Yes. And, I'm like, and people believe this. And it's just so insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so God can fill them with the Holy Spirit, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, people are stupid. I don't get stupid people.
I mean, we had the grazing, Africans. We had the no underwear. Yeah, I
don't get how anybody takes any of this stuff seriously. But then again, you look at like regular church going stuff here, and I don't get how anybody takes any of that stuff seriously either. It's like, look at all this crap that goes on in these stupid churches, all this ritual nonsense. How can somebody who lives in the year 2014 still look at this and go, well, that's a valid thing? No, it's not. It's a stupid thing. Fuck you.
I guess that it gets me to the Ken Ham scientists. You know, these guys are in such a denial of the evidence that's facing them, and they use excuses like, I mean, it sounds to me like, you know, they've attacked, radiocarbon dating. You know, it's like, well, do you even know what it is? You know, because you don't seem to know what it is. You know, we understand how it works, what its limitations are. I've just been through another, lecture on, South American ancient societies. You know, through all this dating and all these tools we have a really good picture of how the earth is. But these guys are just, you know, no, because there's an error here, there's errors here, we don't know. They kind of play some of the scientific questions, you know, there's like what is Ham was always doing? Oh, shit.
You weren't there.
Yeah, that's it. You weren't there, so how, yeah, that's it. I mean, and it's actually a true statement, but the problem is we've got enough circumstantial evidence or, you know, parallel evidence lines, trait, you know, whatever. And the nice thing is that the theory of evolution is allowing us to make predictions. And that was the one thing that Ham never, you know, wouldn't touch is that does creationism make prediction? He couldn't answer it. He wouldn't answer it. The science is solid. I don't know why his scientists won't accept it. I mean, other than the fact that maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe they bed down together and, you know, they don't want to lose their gravy train or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, Ken Ham pays them, so maybe that's it. You know, as long as they get paid, they're a happy bunch. So they happily rag on science or the mainstream science and how we misrepresent or they don't accept the biblical creation, whatever the crap they believe. But it's like that, you know, again, they can't get it out of their heads that the Bible isn't the get-all catch-all for every bit of information. There's so much wrong with the Bible.
Yeah, but I'm willing to bet that people like Ham, and it's not just Ham, it's a lot of people in the evangelical circles. I know back when the Institute for Creation Research was, I don't know if they're still around or not, but when they were still in Southern California and sort of relevant back in the 70s and 80s, they forced all of their scientists to sign an oath that the Bible was perfect in every single way, and they could never find any evidence of anything that disagreed with the Bible. Which is not science.
It's not science, yeah.
But that's how they operate. You know, the Bible comes first, and anything that they find in science that contradicts the Bible just gets thrown out of hand because they can't accept anything that does not fit in with the Bible.
Yeah, it kind of sounds.
That's how they work.
Yeah, it's kind of like Nazi Germany, science.
Yeah, kind of like that.
You know, as long as it showed German superiority, it was good science. If it didn't show German superiority, it was bad science. So
yep,
that's. And then they call us fascists. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well. All right, well, we should probably get on to the main event.
This is the main event.
Like we did last week, we wanted to take a little bit of time to look into some of the details where we specifically disagree with the neocons. Now, keep in mind that the people in charge of the Republican Party are not, by and large, conservatives. They are, for the most part, liberals, expatriate Southern Democrats whose hyper-religious beliefs have put them at odds with the modern Democratic Party. However, they're still liberals in virtually everything they do. They just do things for different reasons, and I wanted to touch on some of those vital differences between the neocons and actual conservatives. Like last week, I came up with a couple of bullet points, and I don't know what you came up with.
I actually didn't look at it. So let's work from your bullet points. I think that could work.
Oh yeah, that's fine. All right, first off, and this is the obvious one, they have an overwhelming fundamentalist religious adherence with associated social stigmas. They're got fucking religion on the brain. All right, this is obvious since we're atheists, but religion is what actually sent the Southern Democrats into the Republican Party in the first place, following Nixon's Southern strategy. That's why they're Republicans today. These people are fucking religious retards. It is what it is.
Yeah. No discussion there. That's just the way it is, and I can't add to it.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny that modern day Republicans would rather follow the Bible than the Constitution. I mean, in fact, we know that a lot of them are, well, beyond being completely out of their minds, they think that God created the United States as a Christian nation. We kind of talked about that last week.
Right.
They think that we're the new Israel and the favored people of God and all this other stuff. It's no wonder these people are out of their freaking gourds.
Oh yeah. God wrote our Constitution, and I think they even said that the 10 Commandments are built into, whatever I see that's, it's that argument, the Christian nation, and that's what stands out the most. And it's clearly we're not. I mean, there's been declarations against, saying we are not a Christian nation. We are a nation of people.
Yeah, well, I mean, Washington, when he did the Treaty of Tripoli, said in no uncertain terms, this nation was not formed on Christian principles. And you have to remember that this was unanimously approved by Congress and by every state in the Union at the time.
Yeah.
So they didn't even think they were a Christian nation.
Yeah. So this idea, and I'll be brutally honest, even back in the Nixon days, I don't think they swung the religion that hard. I mean, I think the big push or this big switch was probably more from the civil rights situation more than any type of religious, to bring the religious over. I mean, it was more because you're talking this late 60s, early 70s with the swing, and these were from states that were being forced almost at bayonet point to end segregation, end discriminations and all that. I mean, and we're also talking about a time where the whole country was, the busing, the Boston busing issue, that was big news and so on. I don't know if it was so much that that the Republicans were any better than the Democrats, but the Democrats were certainly pushing the civil rights. So yeah, they jumped ship, joined the Republicans. But again, I don't think they swung the religious so much as sort of this corporatism, the religion was there, but it wasn't as bad as until like Reagan came along, and then was that Ralph Reed, and it was the final leap to bring the religious. Now that turned the Republican Party into this religious party, basically.
Well, I mean, at the time, they did come over because of issues like abortion, civil rights, all that kind of stuff. They also did a lot for states' rights because they didn't want to be pushed by the Democrats into accepting things that they didn't accept in their state. But by the time Reagan came along, they had enough of a power base where he had to actually pretend that he was siding with them, and I don't think he ever really did. But he had to pretend that he was siding with them on religious issues in order to get their support for the things that he wanted to get done. And it's only gotten worse ever since then, and a lot of it is because we've just gotten this weird ideological lock in this country now where you're either one side or you're the other side, and, neither side's willing to compromise or give in or do anything else. So, I mean, it's just kind of a mess right now, and I think it's as much the fault of the Democrats as it is the fault of the Republicans. But they're both just different sides of the same coin. Yeah. They both act the same, just for different reasons.
Yeah.
All right, well, my second point was the complete lack of anything resembling fiscal responsibility. I think we can all agree on that. Both the Democrats and the Republicans spend money like it's going out of style. Both of them either tax or borrow money to spend. They just differ on where they place the funding.
Where they get it from and where they spend it on.
Yeah, I mean, they don't understand that actual conservatives don't spend more money than they have. They just have a balanced budget, If we can't afford to do a thing because we don't have enough money, we don't do that thing. And that's not something we can say of the Republican Party for the past 40 years.
Yeah.
They're completely liberal spending patterns. That's the way it works.
I mean, clearly, these are politicians. They want, if your constituents want a bridge or they want this or they want that, they're going to put it on the list. Hey, my people want a bridge, across this river. We need, $30 billion to do it. And, I'll vote for your bridge if you vote for my bridge. And they wheel and deal and they do this. And I think this is pork barrel. I mean, I've heard so much about Illinois. I mean, they're building like, what was it? They built what was it? I'm trying to remember because I know there was an airport and there was they built this riding club, I think it was. What was that? It had to do with horses, like horse ranch, public. I mean, it was public. It was a public, but, to rent the stalls and all that kind of stuff, you had to have like $50,000 to rent a stall because you can get, whatever. And this was built with taxpayer money. It was in a county I don't even think I've even heard of it. And it's just a place, and it's for rich people to keep their horses because they were too cheap to pay, whatever. They couldn't afford to build a barn of their own or whatever the deal was. So they get the taxpayers to do it. Again, that pork barrel stuff that, we want this. I think there was an airport. There's a second airport in St. Louis that got built. No one uses it. I mean, there's nobody there. I mean, literally, they've got a runway, they got a terminal. I think for a short time they had like one airline having one gate, and that was it. And then they bail out. It's an airport, again, taxpayers paid for it. Some politician thought it was a good idea to build it there because I think the argument was that no one was working, or it was probably during a recession or something like that. Let's build an airport and put people to work.
The reality, they were getting kickbacks. Come on, let's be honest.
Probably, but they built this thing. No one uses it.
But that's a lot like Alaska's Bridge to Nowhere, where they just built it because they wanted to put people to work. Well, this is really, again, I go back to this idea that it's a liberal idea, that government is the one that puts people to work and pays paychecks. No, it's not. Government is not supposed to be there to do that. That's the job of private industry and private business. But that's not what the Republicans want, is it?
Yeah. And these were the Republicans who did this. I mean, the Democrats were doing a lot of the same stuff. I mean, when I heard about they wanted to plant flowers. I mean, it was, what was that? When was that? It was like a little, it was right after 9/11. It was that little downtick, and the state was saying, we have no money. We're going to have to raise tax. We're going to look at raising taxes. I think Cook County was going to go and probably tie with Los Angeles for the highest taxes in the country. All this stuff, and our governor, the first lady of Illinois, says, well, we should plant flowers on all the interstates so everyone, to welcome everyone into our state. It's like, you've got no money to do this. The state's broke. I mean, the state's still broke, but you want to plant flowers with money we don't have. It's like, again, nothing makes sense to me, but these are politicians, pure and simple. They're going to say what they want to get their votes. I had to do this one, I jumped into this one discussion. A friend of mine, he asked this question about, what's going on in Russia and, should America be involved in Russia, no, it had to do with Obama being a tough guy, whatever. And I go, no, these guys are politicians. Obama, whoever, they're politicians. That means they're going to say whatever they want so they can get their votes. They don't care how. If they're going to say whatever they're going to say. I had to add in, guys, it had nothing to do with communism, fascism, the Rothschilds, or the Federal Reserve. This guy that answered him, he seems to think all the problems is that we're turning into a communist country and it's all controlled by the Federal Reserve, Rothschilds, and all that kind of stuff. And I go,
oh joy.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, these guys are politicians. That's all they think about is getting your vote and getting the money to run for election. That's all they really care about. That's the fact. There's no agenda out there. These guys are just send me money so I can run for Congress or whatever office I'm running for and vote for me. That's all they care about. And
all they're out there doing is buying votes. That's their entire point in being in office, is to buy votes.
Yep. And if they can get a pork project, they get a real project. They're trying to get stuff for their state. And what really ticks me off about, especially Illinois, we had this senator, Charles Percy. He'd been a senator for 2 terms. He was running for his 3rd term. There was arguments about term limits and so on. Should Illinois have a term limit? All that stuff going on. And, I'm like, well, at the time, Percy had been negotiating to get this, a construction job for, an accelerator. Cause, where I live, I got Argonne National Laboratory, Fermilab. They've got an accelerator there. They were going to build a new one. Illinois and Texas was the last 2. There was one more hurdle to cross. And it was like, it was going to be one of these $1 billion project. And Illinois is always hurting for, construction work. And I thought, oh, this is cool. It wasn't going to be as big as the Large Hadron Collider, but it was close. It was one of those steps forward. So it'd be cool, more science here in Illinois. And, for some reason, this Paul Simon, who's a Democrat, ran a smear campaign against Percy. Eventually he lost. And, Percy lost. The project went to Texas, which is probably a good thing because it turned out to be a boondoggle for the construction company, and it never got finished. The project got canceled because whoever was running it overran the project. They had barely poured concrete and they were out of money. It was one of those fucked up deals.
Yeah.
But, Simon was opposed to it anyhow. For some reason he didn't want to build, anything science. He was all that, that warm and fuzzy, we gotta feed the children type crap. Not that feeding children is a bad thing, but, it's that, think of the children talk, if we don't do this, think of the children, attitude.
Yeah, I'm actually in favor of thinking of the children. Unfortunately, when I want to think of the children, it's all the poor people who can't afford to have children, can't afford to feed children, can't afford to take care of children. They ought to think of the children before they fucking have the children. But nobody wants to talk about that.
Well, Simon turns around and barely 2 years later, he's running for president. Barely 2 years in office. He's running for president. He was even on fucking Saturday Night Live. He actually did a guest spot on Saturday Night Live. He lost the primary and he just kind of disappeared. I don't think he did anything really for Illinois after that. It was the same kind of thing happened here in Illinois with Obama. He gets voted senator, barely 2 years. He fucking runs for president. Why? We need a senator. Illinois needed, at the time, someone there in Washington looking out for Illinois. Percy was doing that. That was the one thing. There was nothing wrong with the guy. Now it's all this, they're there to fill a seat, send me money, get me elected, and I'll fill a seat in Washington. That's all they do. And, Obama did the same thing. And next thing you know, the Democratic governor who took the place of a governor that is already in prison, and he tries to sell Obama's seat, puts him in prison. Okay. That's how fucked up I think politics is. These guys don't think about anything, and this is business as usual. Totally business as usual. I mean, Blagojevich, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I just know that he probably got elected because Ryan, who was Republican, Ryan was probably responsible for, well, the deal was he was involved with this selling of CDLs, semi-truck driver licenses, and it made national news when a family of 6 got killed by one of these drivers who had who had paid a bribe to get a CDL. Ended up in Ryan when he was our Secretary of State. So he ends up going to prison. He gets convicted and sent to prison on that. So who's gonna vote for a crook Republican? So they vote for Blagojevich, who turns out to be a crook and tries to sell the Senate seat that was vacated by Obama to Jesse Jackson Jr. and I forget what the other guy was they were negotiating with and it was a bid. It was open bid on Obama's seat, who he was going to appoint to fill that seat. And he didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he thought he was just doing fine. Because that's the way Washington works.
Yeah.
I keep telling people, people will go, well, why don't we just elect better people to go to Washington? Well, the problem is that Washington is so corrupt at this point that you can't get anything done in Washington unless you get corrupted. You will never get anything done. If you're not willing to kiss ass and play the system the way the system is currently written, you can't do anything. And if you can't do anything, you don't get reelected. So everybody who goes to Washington, they're all a bunch of crooks. Yeah. If they're not crooks before they get there, they sure the hell are after they get there.
Definitely.
And this goes for both sides, and I didn't really mean to turn this into a giant political discussion,
right.
But
yeah.
All right, well, let's get on to my last point. The over-reliance on the military, spreading Christianity and capitalism worldwide. And I think this is a huge problem for the Republicans. And a lot of this has to do with the religious aspect. They operate very much like a crusade. They push their political agenda on everybody because they can, because somehow the U.S. is special and everybody has to listen to us. That pisses the shit out of me. These people are idiots.
I don't like the idea of sending our troops anywhere. I mean, now we're talking about ending up in Russia now? Like, what the fuck, can we just fight the wars we have now, get them over with, deal with those? Then maybe let's pick on Russia if we have to. No.
Well, we need to leave Russia the fuck alone, for one thing. You know, if the Ukraine wants U.S. intervention, let them pay for it. Say, hey, I'm willing to contract for your military to come over here and do X, Y, and Z. And then I'm cool because we got the people. Alright, we shouldn't. Our military's way the hell too big. We have no business running around the world swinging our dicks at people. But if we're gonna do it, at least let's get paid for it. We have no vested interest in the Ukraine. There's nothing in the Ukraine that's gonna get us shit. Except going, oh look, we're bigger than the Russians. Ha ha ha. Fuck you people.
Yeah. Europe might have issues. We don't. I mean.
Well then let Europe send their own troops.
Yeah.
You don't see them doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because I think 40% of the oil that Europe gets comes out of Russia. Let them fight for that oil if they want. You know, if they're worried about that oil coming out of there, let them fight for it. We're set. We don't even need to be over there. I mean, all our oil is here in either Canada or Venezuela, and we're pumping plenty here in the States.
And we'd be pumping more if they let us fucking drill.
Yeah. So the problem really is I don't understand those problems over there. I don't like Russians. I mean, I never did. You know,
I don't give a crap about Russians. I give a crap that it's turned into a religious fuckhole ever since communism fell. I'd rather have communism back rather than what they've turned it into now.
Well, I think it's I don't know that. I think they.
Gee, thanks, Putin.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm kind of thinking they still got the communists, but they allowed the religion in. You know, it's like because they can't do anything about it. You know, it's like, you know, I don't know, but it's a screwy world. I just heard the horror stories, and again, this is a totally unrelated story, but kind of, but you know, I got a friend from Czechoslovakia, and he doesn't like the Russians either, and we started talking, and he says, yeah, I'm going, well, they're kind of cliquish. They're not, you know, they don't play outside their group. And he goes, yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, he lived in when it was communist, Czechoslovakia, and he was in the army, and they had apparently they have to make like part of their training. They end up in Russia to train with Russian troops and, all that stuff. And the country is a disaster. I mean, even under the communists, I mean, now with no rules, I wonder what it's like. But, you know, he's talking about, the train stations, the toilets were always, you know, every toilet he come across was always backed up, you know, it's like, and overflowing, and people, you know, whatever the deal is, but you know, he said they were dirty people, but I had to work with, Russian emigres, and, yeah, they're very cliquish. They don't like to deal with outsiders, even though they're here in this country, they stay within their group, and where I was working, you really had to be careful. You really didn't want to piss off the Russians because they held a lot of high up positions. So it's like you piss one of these guys off, they go complaining. Next thing, oh, you're out of work. I quit after 6 months. Not for that reason, but you know, it's totally different reasons. But that was kind of what was being told. I mean, but it's a really weird part of the world. And like I said, the company I work for has tried to work in the Ukraine. I don't know if it's because we didn't pay enough bribes to get the work. It was a state-owned, oil refineries there in the Ukraine. So you're talking government bureaucracies, and apparently Ukraine's broke anyhow, or they just didn't want to spend money to upgrade their refineries. Again, there's some environmental stuff in Europe, so they got to produce a certain, I don't know if it's along the lines of like ultra low sulfur diesel, but whatever the deal was, but they wouldn't pay for it. They wouldn't pay us. I don't think we ever got paid from them. So I think we've kind of abandoned doing any work there, but it's just a weird part of the world, and we don't need to be messing with these people. Let them solve their own problems.
Well, I think in general, everybody should solve their own problems, and we shouldn't be running around pissing off everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we do not need to be swinging our dick in every place on the planet. We don't need to be out there freaking out every time North Korea does something. If South Korea wants to fucking take on North Korea, cool. Their problem, not ours. We do not need to be out defending all of our allies. Our allies need to grow a dick and do it themselves.
Pretty much.
I'd rather see all of our troops at home defending our borders than out, fucking around getting shot by people who don't want us there to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just our presence in Germany. It costs us more every time a U.S. jet, fighter jet, or whatever military jet takes off. They're hit with a $50,000 fine every time they take off. Did you know that?
That's weird.
Yeah, apparently the air bases, I don't know the exact details, but I think Germany declares the land around those airfields are wildlife habitats. So every time a jet has to take off and they fly through that habitat, $50,000.
Well, fuck the Germans.
And it's like, when I heard that, and I don't know how it's, I mean, I'm just hearing it through the grape, it was one of these grapevine. Granted, I got brothers that were in the Air Force. One was at Ramstein. Again, I don't know if that's how true that is, but you know what? Why bother? Why do we do that? We should pack up our bags and, I mean, it's kind of like, there's that South Park. Oh, no, it was The Simpsons. They go to film in Springfield and they're getting taxed. They're getting, everything was more expensive for them. There was an entering the town tax. There was an exiting the town tax. And, they get back to Hollywood and everyone in Hollywood kind of bands together and say, oh, that was so terrible what they did to you. Here's money to get back on your feet, just taking care of, these countries. And I've heard stuff about some of the rules, stuff about driving tanks. They're not allowed on any of the roads. They have to, they can't even drive whatever the deals were. There's all these, all this stuff that, to get to training, they have to spend extra to move them. They have to, whatever the deals were. But, it's like we're in these countries. We're supposed to be this bulwark against the communists, which don't exist anymore. I think we're only there now just to keep the economies going from whatever the deal is. And it's like, we're not really wanted there. We're not needed there. And why are we still there? That's the thing.
Well, you got to remember that we're still in Germany and Japan because we're still there from World War II to keep them from becoming dangerous. Guys, guess what? The world's changed. There was a point in time when if we had to get back to Germany or we had to get back to Japan because they were doing something wrong, it would take weeks or months. Now, it's 5 minutes. It's like, just take off from an airbase here, or it's like, push a button and drop a bomb on them.
Yeah.
We are not needed. Get the fuck out of these countries and go someplace else. Bring them all home. Lay off 50% of the military. Stop spending billions and trillions of dollars a year on this crap that we don't need.
Yeah. When we're talking about then pressing the religious part, in my show for my Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy, I'm actually kind of talking about some of that, just how we've pissed off the Middle East. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. I mean, we treat those people like shit. We forced our religions, we forced our beliefs on them that they don't want. And then we wonder why they strap bombs onto themselves or they hijack some airplanes and fly them into buildings. And what I think is what's really happened is, 9/11, what happened on that day, there's a bunch of pissed off Arabs. That's all it is.
And rightfully so.
And rightfully so. The way we treated those people. And I think I've talked about this. Did I talk about the mandates?
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, I've talked about that. So listen to my show. You'll get the whole thing. But just how we bullied our way. And actually, I just finished reading a book on the Boxer Rebellion. It's the same kind of stuff. It's, what we did in China. If, like every country in Europe and every country in Asia came to the United States and say, we're going to take this little chunk, pick a town, New York. The British come in, we're going to take lower Manhattan. Germany takes upper Manhattan. Clears everybody out and say, this is now German soil, British soil, and we conduct all our trade, all our business with the United States through there. How long would that last? Not long. Not long. But that's what we were doing to China. Britain, Germany, Italy, France, United States, Japan, all had carved out territories. So right in the capital, there's a whole carved out sovereign British territory. Just the way the West was treating the Chinese, there was this movement, the Boxers, I forget the exact Chinese. I don't speak Chinese, and I know it has to do with righteous fists. So again, these Western countries were bringing their the missionaries in, spreading them across the country, trying to convert the Chinese to Christianity. The Chinese got ticked off, and next thing you know, the boxers starting to run around attacking missionaries. I think I forget if they were just beheading them, rounding them up, the missionaries, their families, and behead them. But there was a weird twist to what they were believing, because I think I talked about the Zulus, and they weren't afraid of bullets because they felt they didn't exist, so it would pass right through them. Well, that's how the boxers were. Their leadership, their religious leaders, were saying that bullets will not hurt you. It actually sounds like snake handling. As long as you believe that they won't hurt you, they will not hurt you, type of thing. So they were gaining more power, not necessarily power, but they were gaining followers, and certainly the Chinese government was seeing that these guys were basically men of action. They were starting to fight with the interlopers, with the Westerners, or the outside influences. So eventually the Chinese then said, hey, okay, let's go to war. And they started, and then there was the siege of Peking, that whole thing, and kind of ended the Boxer Rebellion at that point. They call it a rebellion, but it was really more like a revolution was trying to start. It never gained any critical mass. So, but again, that's just, the West, the way we've treated the Middle East, we've treated China this way, we treated the world this way. And then we wonder why they're pissed off at us. Well, it's pretty fucking obvious why they're pissed off at us.
Well, you have to remember, it's not just us. I mean, if you look at history, this is a religion thing.
Yep.
All right? This is especially a Catholic thing, but if you go back to the Crusades, they treated all the Muslims in the Middle East pretty much the same. If you look at all of the missionary work that went into the New World, they treated them pretty much the same. If you look at all the missionary work that goes on in Africa, pretty much the same thing. These people are out there swinging their dicks around, forcing people to convert to their religion. Yeah. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Well, we are going super long again.
Okay.
I mean, having these really long, intricate historical discussions tend to go way off topic for us. And I mean, they're cool and all, but what the listener doesn't understand is that we will tend to sit here and talk. And I mean, we just talk for 2.5 hours. And we got to edit this down to something that's a little bit more manageable and maybe pretends to be a little bit on topic. So there's kind of that. So let's go ahead and finish up for the week.
I'm done.
So we need to stop.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's it. We've run out of things to say, but we'll be back next week with another show. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes links, and make sure you come back in another short week. Until we meet again, take care.
Good night, everyone.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephus and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/TheBspotReport. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.